thank you, ISEAS, for inviting me over here. This is my second time speaking at this center, and I'll try my best to basically address this particular issue because basically it's a little bit complex, and as you know that there are a lot of challenges being faced by the current Pakatan Harapan government in Malaysia. I will start by saying that, let me try this. Okay, it works. We have to look at this, before I proceed further, the overview of the country of Malaysia. So the current population as of 2019 is about 32,343,000, right? And birth rate is at, birth rate is at 1.8 million, and death is just almost 500,000. So meaning to say that by 2040 the population will reach around 41 million, right? So meaning to say that we have more birth rate than death rate, and that's why there's going to be a population boom later on. We have to know as well that there are currently 6.5 million Chinese of Malaysia, and this unfortunately that the growth population is going to drop 2% to 2.5% every 10 years for the next 30 to 40 years. All these statistics are very important for us to appreciate what is going to happen subsequently in the next election and the following elections. And this is basically the percentage distribution of Malaysian population. We have 61% of Muslims and about 30% of the others. Yeah, 30% of Christian and Buddhists, and of course there are another 10% Indians, Hindus, and animist and atheists as well. Right. So this would be what I would say the preamble to my talk. Yeah, and you see that what I spoke at this Darul Arqam yesterday was saying that unfortunately, not only after the last election last year, but even 5 years before this, we have seen that that Islam has been dynamically propelled into the center stage. I used the term yesterday as the intrusion of literal Islam into politics. I would elaborate that later, what I meant by the intrusion of literal Islam. But that's the situation, and you see that this the recent issue about Zakir Naik was basically another intrusion of literal Islam, because Zakir Naik is basically another Wahhabi Salafi propagator. Yeah. And it has become a medium for Malay politics, and political demands for greater Islamic purity have multiplied despite the change in political climate. We see that every now and then people are talking more and more about religion, and more about how Islam should play a greater role in politics in Malaysia. Yeah, and despite the federal constitution has put that that Malaysia is supposed to be a secular, pluralistic democracy with provisions to ensure not only equality but equity as well. But unfortunately, since our independence for the past 61 years, that this thing has been perverted for political mileage of the ruling government. And we knew that Barisan Nasional had been in power for almost 60 years, right? And because of that, they almost became the longest regime ever governed a country, right? 60 years. So that was a long time. Yeah, that was a long time. So my hypothesis, this is my hypothesis, okay? This is my hypothesis to say that the worsening situation in race and religion, religious matters is correlated with the economic disparity between the races. So to me, this is the major factor. We have here a very prominent economist, Professor Hogan, and a lot of the things that I'm going to mention today will revolve around the expertise, his expertise, yeah, about economy. And To me, if we can address this particular issue, this economic disparity, I do not think that, I think that we'll be able to solve all the other problems related to it. The main major problem that led to the apprehension of the of the Malays in Malaysia was basically because of this economic disparity. And as I quoted this James Carville, the Bill Clinton campaign manager during the 1992 election at that time, he said, "Is the economy stupid?" Right? So everything revolves on this main issue. It's about economy. Right. If you look at this Malay dilemma, this that the government had formed this ETP, you call it Economic Transformation Program under Pemandu, and it was launched in 2010 and supposed to transform Malaysia into the high income nation by 2020. That's not far. That's next year. But the fact is, without improving the socio-economic status of the Bumiputra, Malaysia cannot hope to achieve the ambition to become a high-income advanced economy. To me, we have to address that. Whether we like it or not, that's the main thing that we have to address. Okay, this economic equality among the different races in Malaysia. So now we look this what we call as this B40. Okay, B40, or 40% of approximately the current population, about 12.8 million households, have a household income of below 3,000. That's approximately that. Hogan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the data that we use roughly, the rough data that we use. Okay, and recent statistics showed that the Bumiputra makes up the largest proportion of households, earn less than 3,000, means that the larger proportion of this B40 would be Bumiputras. Okay, and the previous government planned to increase the B40 household average income from 2,537 to 5,270 by 2020, which I do not think we will be able to achieve that. Okay, we wanted to basically to try and get to that target. I would say that even though the aspiration is noble and but the thing is that there was not much of a concerted effort to reach that target, right? And to me, this is my assessment. You can challenge that, but my assessment is that what the previous government did was basically to keep the Malays poor. What they did was that to keep the Malays poor. Why? Because the Malays would be the fixed deposit to the ruling government, to this UMNO Barisan National Government at that time. And you have heard of BRIM. At that time, they gave a handout of about 950 free installations to those household income of less than 3,000. And unfortunately, this BRIM until today, even though they rename it to something else, but it's actually a cash handout as well, that people got hooked up with that. It's like you're addicted to morphine, right? You cannot get out of it. Once you're given it, then they still wanted to continue it. And the sentiment was that Dr. Mahathir was against this. When Najib came out with this idea of BRIM, he was very much against it. He said it's basically a bribe to get votes, right? But he was unable, still today, to basically to say no to this, right? Okay, they changed the name, yes, but it's still the same. They don't call it BRIM anymore. They call it, I couldn't remember what they call it, but it's still on. It's still on. I heard one politician in Malaysia from Bersatu, from Mahathir's party, said, he said in Malay, langkah mayat aku dulu. You have
over my dead body.
Yes, over my dead body. Over my dead body, up to that level. And he's from Bersatu, he's from the ruling party. He said, over my dead body. So I think that, this kind of the mentality that, that has been, formed, right, inculcated by the previous government, stayed in the Malay psyche. And, they still wanted these handouts to be given to them. So, and to me, there's another thing, that why the Malays must be kept poor by the previous government was because they would become oblivious to the leakages and corruption of the previous regime. Because if they're poor, means that if they're receiving less than 3,000, they don't have to pay tax. If you don't have to pay tax, whatever people do with the money, they would have in their mind and say, well, that's not my money. It's as long as I get my salary, that's enough. They don't feel that it's part of their, their what they call their rights and their duty to basically to try and correct it. So people don't get this. The Malays and in Malaysia, sorry to say this, but they are more concerned if you talk about there's some ingredients of porcine or what we call porcine or pork, right? In your food, as compared to if you say that this man is actually swindling like millions and millions of dollars. That tiny, minute details, or even an extract of porcine extract, a molecule of DNA molecule of porcine is there. Oh, in vaccines or whatever, they would be like, they would go berserk because of that. But they don't care about, if leakages were there, if corruption was rampant or anything like that, because they're not paying tax. So to me, this is my hypothesis. Hokan, you can. You can disagree with me, but that's what I think. Right. This is another important thing that I wanted to say. This was just being released last Thursday, right? On the 23rd, by this statement by Professor Philip Alston, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, from his visit to Malaysia. He was addressing this particular issue of poverty. Okay. What did he say? He said Malaysia, with current population of 31 million, has officially reduced its national poverty rate from 49% in 1970 to 0.4% in 2016. But Malaysia's extremely poverty line is not consistent with the cost of living in the country. A poverty line of 980 would see an urban family of 4 surviving on 8 ringgit per person per day, a tragically low line for a country on the cusp of attaining high income status. Meaning to say, they have not reviewed this poverty line of 980. And they're still keeping it. And there's this minister known as Azmin Ali. He disputed, what was being said by Professor Philip Alston. He wanted to say, no, we have managed to reduce the even poverty line in KL to be 0%, up to 0%, And then this was the data being said 0.4% in 2016. It almost reached to 0%. They said, and many people believe that we have managed to eradicate poverty. But Philip Alston said, no, it's not. That's not the case. The issue here is that we have to understand this particular thing about absolute versus relative poverty, right? So I would like to read this. Absolute poverty is measurement based on the declared poverty line, whereas relative poverty, on the other hand, sets a threshold of half the national median income. And of 2016, Bunta still had a higher poverty rate in Chinese or Indian populations, whether we like it or not. We go to the Malay heartlands of Kedah or Malays or Kelantan and Terengganu, and even Pahang itself, you will see this, like they're living in extreme poverty. Yeah, they're living in extreme poverty. I've had heard so many cases because some of my friends were working on the ground, helping these families and by giving collecting zakat and to give to them, rather than waiting for the government to help. The Khazanah Research Institute found that a relative poverty measure of 60% of median income would show 22.2% households in poverty in 2016. In 2016, they say the relative poverty line was about 22.2%. And this led to the discontent and resentment of the Malays for the unfulfilled promises of Pakatan Harapan. Right? Even though, the Pakatan Harapan was actually a 1 year, just 1 year, yeah? Just celebrated its 1 year anniversary. And this was 60 years before was under Barisan Nasional. But they're putting all the blame on the current government. And that's the issue. That's the dilemma that we're facing now. The new government is facing that the burden of this, what had happened for the past 60 years, they are supposed to basically try and solve within like the next 5 years or so before the next general election. If you look here, right, this is this graph. If you look at this graph, right, this is up to 2012, and you see the relative poverty is around that line. It's 20. In 2016, just now, we saw it 22%, right? So I do not have the latest data of 2018, but or 2000, yeah. But that's basically it's about that, right? It's about that. We have not improved at all, right? To say that we have managed to eradicate poverty is basically false. Now, these are the challenges I would like to say. I would like to quote what Tun Dr. Mahathir said. We wish to see everyone equal in all matters that matter, and we would like to see everyone as rich as each other. That's what he wanted. A very noble intention of Tun Dr. Mahathir. Yeah. And unfortunately, if you look at the racial Gini coefficient, Gini coefficient is actually, Dr. Hogan can explain better than me. But actually, if you look at Gini coefficient, you know that an equal society would have, it goes closer to 0, right? And the higher it is, the higher to 1, it means that it's the most unequal society, where you don't have 0, you don't have 1. In this world, you don't have 0 and 1. Even the most equal society among the Scandinavians, okay, Denmark, and this Norway, they are very equal. It's about 0.25%, 0.25, the Gini coefficient. And if you look at the most unequal country, like Botswana or Swaziland, all these African countries, they were about 0.65 or 0. Around that region, right? So, but when you look at Malaysia, it's approximately 0.399, yeah? And that's the dangerously with the World Bank benchmark of 0.4, beyond which a country is considered severely unequal in wealth distribution. So that's the problem they were facing in Malaysia. And I believe probably, I don't know whether Singapore has addressed this particular issue, but that's the issue that we have to address in Malaysia. Wealth inequality is a strain on economic growth and a source of social instability. The haves and the have-nots, yeah? So you see that in our country as well. There are some Malays who are filthy rich, yeah? But you know that they are the products of this crony capitalism of the previous regime, right? Sorry to say that, but that's the truth. So, yeah. Alright, let's go to the next one. So you look at this Merdeka Centre's, what they say, right? Concerns about the economy was the first main concern to be followed by ethnic relations, and the situation of Malay rights came second in a recent survey. That's what they say. Based on their survey, it's about economy. That's what I said earlier on. Everything goes to one main factor, the economic factor. The target of the NEP was set in 1971 for a 30% equity for Bumiputera, but unfortunately, according to EPU, the ownership as of 2017 was just at 23%. Right? I think Dr. Ho and I attended your lecture once in the UM. You addressed this as well, yeah, about this particular issue. Though we have not reached about that 30% equity that we wanted. So if you look at this graph, this is from Merdeka Centre's graph. Yeah, expectations for the future have become increasingly pessimistic, reaching level just prior to the introduction of the GST. So if you look at it, this is decline, this is growth. You look at it, you know, even though it gets better around this region, but then you know it drops. Yeah, people are basically not happy, right, about this. You look at the next graph, okay, this national economy optimism. You see that the sentiment, right, is getting worse, right? You see this one is improved, this one is getting worse. Just look at the graph. So you know nothing is positive about the current situation under Pakatan Harapan. So this is the second dilemma. The second dilemma is about politics. So Pakatan Harapan basically they won, okay? According to the last generation, they won 124 seats out of the 222 parliamentary seats. And the opposition, PAS, UMNO, and also independent, they won about 98 seats. Yeah, 98 seats of that. But having said that, if you look at the statistics, basically, these, even though they won 124 seats, they only managed to get 30% of the Malays. Of the Malay votes, just 30% of the Malay votes. Meaning to say that the Malays, it was, yeah, some people say it was a Chinese tsunami from during the last general election, yeah? Because they just managed to get this very, sad statistics, 30%, just 30%. Meaning to say that, whatever was being said by the PAS and about, the Malays are under threat from the Chinese, it basically managed to frighten or put this apprehension upon the Malay voters, and they basically wanted to keep the status quo. It is irrespective of whether it was a kleptocratic government, the worst kleptocratic government in the world under Najib, but they don't mind, as long as the Malays have this political power. So that's the psyche that we have to understand. Okay, next one, the perception. The narrative has been that the position of Islam and Malays is under threat, yeah, post G14. Now, people still think that with the current issues pervading the politics in Malaysia, that they say that Islam and the Malays basically they are under threat. All right. You look at this Francis Fukuyama book on identity. He says has challenged the conventional theory of the economy as the main driver for change. He contended that identity has replaced the economic factors as a major driver of change, right? So this his intellectual framework to me on this politics of identity explains many of the happenings post G14. And what happened in the G14? Basically, as what I said, they got this three-cornered fight, right? They have this Pakatan Harapan, they have PAS, they have UMNO. Even though the initial idea, because there was no basic collaboration at that time between PAS and UMNO. So somehow or rather, because of this, PH managed to, capitalize on this non-Malay support in the 30 mixed seats, parliamentary mixed seats. Right? So that's why they won 184 seats at that time. So Malay voters chose the second strongest party in the local context despite Najib's kleptocracy, meaning to say that in Kelantan, in Terengganu, you see that who won the most? PAS, right? PAS maintained. So they chose PAS. They don't want to choose UMNO, and they refuse to choose Pakatan PKR or Amanah to represent them. So they chose the second strongest Malay party. There will be PAS. And of course, these two Dr. Mahathir and Muhyiddin Yassin, they were mobilizing factors, but mostly in the northern, central, and southern region. Southern region, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, and northern region and central region will be to Dr. Mahathir, right? So I think this is a thing that we have to talk about as well. This politics of fear, yeah. American sociologist Barry Glassner coined the culture of fear, where people may incite fear in the general public to achieve political goals through emotional bias. I think this is the most potent weapon being used by UMNO and PAS in getting the Malays to support their agenda, by fanning the mantra that Malays in Pakatan are mere stooges of the DAP. Every day we hear this. Every day we hear that, this Amanah, they are subservient to the DAP. This, everything is, DAP is manipulating everything, right? It's manipulating the political situation in Malaysia. So to me, if I look at it, I would say that, whatever it is, but if we can address the economic situation of the Malays, probably we could dilute a little bit of this political apprehension among them, right? Because once they are well off in the economy, once they don't feel the burden of the economic burden upon them, I think they will be able to alleviate a little bit of their fear that, the Chinese are going to take over the country. So UMNO PAS merger. Now we have heard that they're trying to formalize coalition between them, between UMNO and PAS, between the two biggest Malay parties in Malaysia. And as we look at it, they are getting much stronger, and they were about to merge. I don't think that they have signed any formal coalition yet, or formed any common coalition with a common logo or something like that, but they are moving towards that. So because of this show of force you saw on YouTube and everywhere during the rally that they helped to go against ISEAS and Rome Statute, this ratification of ISEAS and Rome Statute, that the government had to backtrack, right? But if you look at this, if you look at this particular graph, right, you'll see the green ones, these are the Malay majority seats, right, where there are Malay seats over 70%, all this, the belt over the left side of the peninsula, and of course some of it in Malays and in Kedah and in Perak, and of course a few others in southern and middle region of Malaysia. So we have to be worried about that, right? This is the Malay belt that that there is a possibility of it basically being returned back to UMNO and PAS in the next general election. So the way forward, now I'm reaching towards the end of my talk, I would say that, to me, as what Dr. Mahathir said, Malaysians must be equal in all matters that matter, economic, social, political and protective freedoms. And what was said by Dr. Mahathir was basically similar to what was said by a famous economist, Amartya Sen, who argues in a similar vein in his book, Development of Freedom. He says that rather than solely focusing on wealth and income per capita, development must be viewed as advancement of real freedoms that individuals enjoy. In addition to better education and healthcare, he advocates, right, political freedom that affords voice in governance, economic freedom to pursue prosperity, and protective freedom that affords social safety nets for the poor. So it goes back to the whole idea that I mentioned earlier on, that is about improving the Gini coefficient, about the disparity in economic wealth. And if you look at another philosopher, John Rawls, his book, we had dissected his book on a few occasions, And we look at it, he articulated much earlier than Amartya Sen, which is the current economist. He's a philosopher. A long time ago, he said about this justice as fairness. It closely resembles basically what Dr. Mahathir says, and he recommends equal basic rights, equality of opportunity, and the promotion of the interests of the least advantaged members of society. The state, therefore, must engage in redistribute taxation to ensure a fair distribution of wealth and income across society. So what he proposed, John Rawls proposed, was basically distributive justice. Yeah? That's the word. The word is distributive justice. Now, to me, the previous government, if you remember, under Najib, he mentioned that they wanted to propose one thing. That was what they call as Sharia Index. Because why he wanted to use Sharia Index? Because it will give legitimacy to him. Yesterday, I spoke at Darul Arqam. I mentioned, one of the things that Najib did, just before the previous election, was to basically to get the Malay Muslims to support him more, because he believes the bulk of the votes will come from the Malays. And we saw that they managed to get more than 70%, almost 70% of the Malay votes. Najib would be wearing this white jubah, this white skull cap, attending this Hanana, the Sufi kind of gathering. He spent thousands of dollars. He spent millions sending people to perform Hajj or to perform Umrah, and a lot of things. All this basically to show off his Islamic credentials. And one important thing that really he wanted to do was to introduce what is called as Sharia Index, right? And of course, there were some Muslim academics who basically collaborated with him in trying to formulate this what is known as Sharia Index. And unfortunately, they were from the famous International Islamic University of Malaysia, who helped him to come up with the Sharia Index. To me, Sharia Index is nonsense, okay? It's nonsense. Because where do you put corruption there? There is no index for corruption in the Sharia Index. Why are you talking about Sharia Index when there's no index for corruption? Right? So to me, if you want to talk about index, then this is the index. This is called as Islamicity Index. Okay, this was basically from the work of two professors at Georgetown University, George Washington University. I think they were Iranian scholars in George Washington University who came up with this, and they look at this adherence to 4 indices. Okay, economics, legal and governance, human and political rights, and international relations. Meaning to say about war and everything. Yeah? And to look at that. So they came up with this complex formula, and they calculated this Islamicity Index. That is basically to look at the legal governance Islamicity Index, human rights, political rights index, international relation index, and so on. And based on this index, they look at all the countries in the world, right? Can you guess who gets the highest index? Is New Zealand. So in one forum at the International Islamic University, and I was there as one of the panelists, and there were one ulama of UMNO, head of the Ulama Muda UMNO, this Dr. Fazlan, and then they were from PAS. Yeah, at that time, this Dr. Zulkifli was from PAS. Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad was there as well. And one of the questions by the moderator, he asked each of us, a quick one, just a quick one. There's one question. There are many other questions, but a quick one. If you look today, at that time that was in 5 years ago, something like that. If you look today, which country do you think is basically an Islamic country? So he asked the UMNO, Sir Patlan. Of course, he's from the Ulama Muda UMNO. They were 100%, almost 100% Wahhabis. in this ulama muda UMNO, right? And you can expect what his answer was. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. So and then the moderator, Dr. Mazli, who's currently the education minister. Okay, he was the moderator at that time. So this Dr. Mazli, he asked me, so what do you think, Dr. Farouk? I said, New Zealand. And you know, I came up with I bought the paper. It's a 40-page paper, right? About this, how Islamic, the paper is titled, How Islamic is Islamic country, Islamic countries, right? So, meaning to say that, everything is there, in black and white. And I said, you know, you look at this paper. This paper basically calculated the Islamicity index of all the countries in the world. And New Zealand fared the most. And all the Scandinavian countries were top 5, top 10 of the countries. Sweden, you know, Denmark, what they call Norway, and all these countries. They were better, right? Everything. And where was Saudi Arabia? It was there, down there, 100 and I couldn't remember, you know. How could that be an example of a good Islamic country, right? So we have to look at it. And yeah, and let me conclude it by saying that the adoption and implementation of such a system respect human rights, social and economic justice, hard work, equal opportunity and for all, to develop absence of corruption, absence of waste and hoarding, ethical business practices, well-functioning markets, legitimate political authority should result in flourishing economies and alleviate the anxieties of the Malays. I think, you know, we should move towards that. If we really want to address this particular issue, we have to move towards that. I think the most important thing is for good governance. Yeah, if the Pakatan Harapan could instill that, right, could show that this is what is it, good governance, right? Basically, we will try and, you know, weed out corruption from the system. Yeah, to try and create all the virtues, all the of Islam. You don't have to mention that, okay, these are Islam. You don't have to mention that. You know, you have what we call as universal values, right? Cleanliness is universal value. You know, yesterday I spoke at the Rakam. I said, you know, if you were to read any book of fiqh is Islamic jurisprudence. Okay, there are many books of fiqh in Islam. If you open the first chapter of fiqh, the book of fiqh, any book of fiqh, whether from Shafi'i mazhab, Hanafi mazhab, or any mazhab in mazhab is the denominations, in Islam, what is the first chapter about? First chapter is about tahara. Tahara is about cleanliness, right? How to take ablution, how to take ghusl, how to, you know, what do you call it, bath and everything. It's about tahara. I told them yesterday, how could a religion that places so much emphasis on tahara, on cleanliness, how could it be that we have a nation, an ummah, that is so dirty, right? I told them, you know, when I went for Hajj in 2001, I was at Mina. Mina is a place that you spend the last 3 days after during Hajj. And I was in Mina, and I performed what you call I was there on the last day. Most of them left on the second day. You could do the earlier, you can leave Mina earlier one day, or you could finish it on the third day. So I was there. And you know, there were not many people, right? Because on the third day, most of them left Mina. I was there. And when I was there, and I was looking around me, everywhere littered with, you know, with packets of drinks and plastics, and you know, it was like a wasteland. It was like a wasteland. And recently, somebody posted on Facebook a similar image of Mina during the last day of this what we call Jamrah, the time where we throw the devils, the stones, where stones. So, and at that time I was drinking a packet of orange juice, right? And I was saying to myself, deep in my heart, I was saying, well, if I throw this here, it wouldn't make much difference, you know, it's like thousands of packets of drinks. But I said to myself, this is not right. I have to go and find a trash bin and throw it over there. And I went and threw it in a trash bin. If we have that kind of, you know, of what you call belief in us, that kindness is part of our religion, I think, you know, we'll be as clean as Singapore. Right? Some people say Singapore is too clean. I'm not too sure. Yeah, probably, yeah, it's very clean. Yeah? We want that. And that's an Islamic value. We don't have to say that Islamic value to be clean, but you know, you have to say, we have to emphasize on this cleanliness, which is basically Islamic value. We don't have to talk about it. You don't have to say that you have to be free from corruption. Of course it's Islamic value, but you don't have to say that. It's universal. So the most important thing to me is to tell people that, you know, you need this. You need this, and you need to change your attitude. Right? Actually, I have basically last slide basically was about this particular verse in the Holy Quran to say that, you know, God will not change the condition of a people unless they change within themselves. They have to change themselves. Yeah? Then God will change. Don't think that, you know, you can change the condition just by praying, just by making dua to God and change the condition of, you know, make this country prosper, make us this, make us that. No, you have to do it yourself. Then there will be change. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much.